Hey, this is Mark Henry, author of Dancing with Energy, Healing, Magic, and Mysticism. Well, today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about a subject that someone suggested to me, and that is occult perspectives on invisibility. Now, when we're talking about invisibility, we're pretty much talking about possibly three different things. So whenever we're having a conversation with, especially with another person, we need to define what exactly we mean by our term invisibility. First definition. Invisibility can mean, for some people, the ability to be completely unseen objectively from all people and all things, all cameras. That's one definition of invisibility. Another definition might mean that you can still be seen on some level. You can be unnoticed. However, you are capable of being seen. Well, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that for some reason you are not attracting the attention of the people around you. If they were looking for you, you probably would be seen, but you just are kind of like blending into the background. Okay. Number three, some occultists say that when the grimoires talk about invisibility, most of the time they're not talking about physical invisibility. They're talking about the ability to travel the astral unimpeded without being seen or messed with. Okay, so those are the main definitions of invisibility. Next is, and by the way, I'm going to preface this video, I'm going to be giving you some little bit of hints and some information from a couple different magical texts and experiences that some people that I know have had, so you can try it for yourself. This is a kind of new territory. It's something that is very much on the cutting edge. Some people swear by it. Other people have a hard time believing it. But I'm putting it out there for you to experiment, if you care to, and see what you come up with. So next, whenever you're talking about invisibility, try to determine what is your purpose for becoming invisible. For example, invisibility, as far as I can tell, does not mean that you're formless. So you could not pass through walls. You couldn't pass through locked doors. There are certain intents that people have that might be that invisibility might be a good thing for. For example, to be able to, if you were a spy or something, if you needed to walk through a dangerous area and you did not want to attract attention, invisibility might be a good idea, along with some magical protection, of course. That being said, with any magical goal, define your terms and define your purpose so that you have a better chance of knowing when you get there. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the video. Okay, so what do occultists and various magical texts say? Okay, so if we look at the book Modern Magic, the one by Donald Michael Craig, the 11 Lessons of the High Magical Arts, he talks about the Rose Cross ritual. The Rose Cross ritual is a ritual that you would do that would contain your aura, to bring it in close. One of the things that happens when we're around people is that our auras come in contact, because it can extend a bit of distance. And by doing that, you can actually feel somebody's presence without necessarily even hearing them. So the Rose Cross ritual, from my understanding, is one of the rituals that can bring everything in close. Another way that this was described to me is when people feel extreme sadness, they bring in their withdrawal into themselves a lot of times, especially if they're kind of become reclusive. And for these particular people, when they say that no one notices I'm sad, or that no one is calling me on the phone, they may be, and this is just my understanding of what some occultists speculate, is that they are, in a way, making themselves invisible by this type of magical manifestation, self-fulfilling prophecy, of drawing their energy and drawing everything inward and not outward, where we think of them more extroverted, outgoing type of people. This is an extreme introversion and introjecting and directing that energy within. So if you are interested in that, look up that book and you can go through the Rose Cross ritual. Number 2 would be, there is a ritual that the Golden Dawn does. I believe there's the Golden Dawn book by Israel Regardie. And it is about enclosing yourself in a shroud of concealment. This was part of an old Rosicrucian idea of a shroud as a cloud, and I've come across this several times about their attuning with this astral substance, which is like a cloud, and if you can take this cloud and bring it over through your interaction and your relationship with it, then that would obscure your other people's ability to see you, because this cloud would not be able to reflect or refract light, which is what the actual physical mechanism of seeing on the physical level. So you might want to check that out. In the book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin, the Mage, I think they talk about a magical square that's constructed. And that if you take this magical square, which is inscribed with language involving concealment and invisibility and all that type of stuff, then you take that, and I believe you wear it in your hat, then you can possibly become invisible. Now, that's getting into some little bit of folk magic type of sounding stuff, but if any of you have tried that and found that it worked, let me know. That is kind of a classic magical text. Next, goetic demons. If you're somebody who tends to move towards a little bit of the darker side, you work with the Goetia, Lesser Key of Solomon, then you can work with different beings like Baal, Astaroth, Asmodee. They supposedly, or have the reputation of being able to bestow invisibility on the petitioner. Next, an occultist that I know, a female, she actually uses a particular technique in order to go into public and, let's just say, avoid excess attention, which she tries to avoid. She's a natural introvert. She tries to avoid men from hitting on her in public. And she has tested this several times. One experience that she told me about is that she saw someone that she knew who she was friends with, and she got within feet, and this person looked at her, in her direction at least, and kind of went on with his business. It was act like she was a complete stranger and was somebody that made direct eye contact and acted like they didn't know, and there was no expression, there was nothing. It was like they were looking at air. So, and that's happened a couple times. She reports that when she goes to grocery stores, people constantly running into her, as if, she doesn't have much of a form. Now, from her perspective, that she is blending into the background, and that other people just aren't. She has such a small presence that there's no discernment between her and the background and the environment. In fact, what her technique is, in case you're interested, this would be more along the lines of what's called a glamoury. and witchcraft. Glamories are adjusting your aura using your intention, visualization, in order to project a particular effect. Now, with this effect, it would be, I guess you can perceive a negative effect, not negative as in bad, but negative as in not projecting a presence, the opposite. So she imagines herself as being formless, as being very small, as being insignificant, as in just like a ghost. And that's her technique. And she's practiced this for a while, so feel free to steal that from her and see how you do. So the next thing would be, and this is kind of along the same lines, because we were talking about the Rosicrucian technique. Well, actually, we'll get to that in a second, but I mentioned the Rosicrucian term, and I mentioned the Golden Dawn book with Israel Regardie. So what does Aleister Crowley have to say? He actually had some thoughts about invisibility. And he said, I think it's a direct quote, that this is not about optics, this isn't about the eye. And he basically said what I mentioned before. He said that, that this isn't about what you see and what you don't see, it's what you notice and you don't notice. That his technique for him walking down the street was he would gather a feeling of lightness, a feeling of being a spirit, of ghostliness. He would turn inward, and he would be completely, when he turned inward, be completely oblivious to the environment, like he was in a deep trance. And when that happened, he had just the intention of hiding, which is similar to the person that I know. He tested this. He actually went down a busy street in a city with wearing a scarlet robe and a king's crown, and he says that he did not attract any attention at all. Everybody was just minding their own business and not saying anything. Now you can imagine when Crowley lived, they had a particular sensitivity to everything that was unusual and out of the ordinary. If you did that nowadays, people might look at you a little bit, but not much, because we have a lot of different diversity of interests in our society nowadays. But you can imagine back then, early 1900s, him doing that, that should have attracted a lot of attention, maybe even the police. Maybe lock him up in an asylum. But according to him, it didn't happen. So the Rosicrucian idea, they believed invisibility was achieved through a veil of obscurity. Again, we see the themes. They say to turn inward, turn your attention inward. That you need to slow your mind, and that you create a mind screen around you, with what they term a mind screen around you. And that, just like we were talking about the aura extending and possibly touching other people's aura, energy field, and possibly giving you away, they believe that our thoughts could also be projected outward and indicate our presence to other people on an unconscious level. So this mind screen would contain our thoughts and not give it away. And then you would surround yourself with that, and you with the intention of being invisible to others, and you would imagine yourself a curtain being around you. So that veil was like a curtain with the screen, and then by doing that one could walk around virtually undetected. Okay, thank you for listening to me. Thanks for listening to my thoughts about invisibility and the thoughts of other magicians and occultists. If you have any experiences, feel free to share. Again, I'm going to put some descriptions of maybe some of these books in my description line in case you want to purchase them. Feel free to subscribe and like, and I also will put a link or two if you want to check out my Patreon, or even to give a small donation for the channel. So I will talk to you in a future video. Bye-bye.